Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of our podcast. My name is Manuel,
And my name is Elena.
and today's topic is comics. Is it still worth to read them in 2020?
So, yeah, we decided to bring this topic because sometimes a lot of people ask if it's worth it reading comics nowadays. But I think they are, because inside of comics you can find a lot of interesting topics and sometimes a lot of involving stories, so about love, violence, discrimination, or a lot of other topics. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, so for today we will just focus on the Marvel comics because I think they're one of the most famous comics in the world as a comic brand. So either we'll use some examples coming from these comics, and also we can connect them to the movies because, of course, nowadays you have a lot of Marvel comics. You have the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is a huge franchise and also a very successful franchise. So yeah, as you said, I agree that there are many interesting topics surrounding these kind of comics. It's easy to see them, yes, in the Marvel comics. If you take, for example, the X-Men into consideration,
Yeah.
they were created in order to deal with the discrimination topic. So the fact of being different inside of a society, so how people would react. So of course in the comics they use this metaphor of being a mutant, so having superpowers, yes, but being different from the other normal people, let's say. So being a mutant, an evolution from a normal being, is something, of course, which is just by accident. So, of course, mutants don't want really their powers. They're just born with them, and they suffer discrimination because of these kind of powers that make them different. Of course, there are some sides of this question, so of this topic. So you have mutants who accept their identity and try to stop this kind of discrimination, being well, I would say helpful, or I don't know, just not aggressive against these kind of people who don't really like them. And there are other mutants who react aggressively to this kind of discrimination. It's like, okay, if you don't tolerate us, we won't tolerate you, and that's what creates, of course, a lot of fights and problems, accidents, and so on. And of course, the image of the X-Men is, of course, a group of people who needed some guidance with their powers, also in order to live peacefully inside of a society. So there's a lot that should make you reflect about this kind of situations.
Yeah, I think the X-Men are a very good example of what it really means to be discriminated, so to be different. And I think, of course, is still true today. So there are a lot of people who still today feel completely different from our society and feel, of course, discriminated. So of course they every day they fight against prejudice, or they try to find their spot in this society, and they know that the society thinks they are different from the idea that the society has. So I think it's a very deep topic that is still true today. So the X-Men are worth it to read their stories, so you can identify in these characters, and you can feel less lonely, less alone in this society. So I think the X-Men help a lot, especially when you think about bullyism, or yes, it's discrimination in fact. when you feel different from the others, I believe.
Another topic which is also interesting inside of the Marvel comics, it is what really has to do with Spider-Man. I mean, he's the most famous superhero of the Marvel comics, and he basically launched the concept of a superhero with super problems, because of course before Spider-Man everything was about having superpower and being cool, and no, there wasn't a problem in the world who could stop you. The thing is that with Spider-Man you really feel like he is a normal human being with superpowers, of course, by accident. Again, this is really a recurring theme in the Marvel comics. And basically, yes, he has his superpower, but he has to struggle every day during his alter ego life, so his Peter Parker life. Of course, not having money to go on, so having to work multiple jobs to pay his rent or help his aunt, which, by the way, is alone and old, so he's always afraid of revealing his identity because of his aunt's well-being. And also basically he always needs to find solutions to multiple problems at the same time, normally something involving his superhero life and his human being life. So either I don't know, go to the university to have a lesson or an exam, a test, which is a lot important for him, and having to fight the bad guy that he has to deal at the moment. So there is really a lot that you can find inside of his stories. Of course, there are many other topics going on. They decided to deal with drugs, for example, so to talk about drugs, or in the 70s they were talking about the student revolutions. So there is always a lot to discover inside of this kind of comics. And I think it's always something that you need to read and bear in mind when you decide to start a journey like this. So it's always like, okay, only books can give you a specific idea about something or deal a specific topic. This is not really true, I think. So you can find a lot also inside comics, because there are many good writers who prepare the stories for the comics. So I think also nowadays maybe this is more accepted inside of society, and I think that the movies, the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, are also confirming that.
Yeah, so I'm a book reader. I love reading books, but in comics you can find a lot, as you said. So what I really like about Spider-Man character is that, yes, he's practically a normal guy. So Peter Parker is what we call a loser because he studies a lot. He's a genius practically, but he is a loser, so he's just a normal guy trying to living his life without having problems, but he just can't. He's like us. So
yeah, it's also important that he refused his powers on multiple occasions just to try to live his life normally.
Yeah, so if I think about Spider-Man and so Peter Parker trying to deal with his secret identity, so this is the main topic inside of his stories, trying to deal with his normal life and his superhero life. So, and again, of course, his girlfriend. So he's trying to protect everybody he loves, And I think it's a very, very interesting aspect. So you can learn a lot about it. But I think the most important thing is just to make you understand that behind the mask there is a normal guy who has the same problem you could have. So, and I'm not trying to say in books or in other stories there isn't this aspect, but I think comics are pretty good for this topic. So secret identities, problems, dealing with fights and normal life. So yeah, I think this is the most important thing.
And also, the famous quote from SpiderMan
Yeah.
is from great power comes great responsibility. So this is something new at the time. Of course, we're talking about the 1960s. I mean, it was still something new, and of course, every comic got revolutionized during the years. So, of course, today maybe it's something else, but the core of the experience is that. So, every action you take has a consequence, and basically, everything that he does or decides to do has a consequence, and that's why many characters suffered a specific fate because of him. So some died, some became his enemies, and so on. So everything is important, and he's always conflicted about this thing. So he always feels that it's really hard to do the right thing all the time. So I mean, this is normal. If you read it through the lines, this is just normal life. So of course you always have to make a decision and hope for the best. So and of course be responsible. So there are so many things that you can learn and take from a comic. So hope this helped to shed some light into this kind of topic. Of course, this doesn't cancel, of course, the function that books have.
Of course.
We're not saying that. Of course, this is just complementary. So you can read books and read comics or graphic novels if you prefer at the same time. So we're talking basically about the same thing. I guess that's it for now. So maybe in the next episodes we will address the topic again, maybe with other examples. Today we just refer to the Marvel comics, or to the two most famous examples of Marvel comics. Maybe next time we will change the subject and do something else.
Yeah, maybe we will talk a little bit about the DC comics, because also those are pretty interesting and have different kind of topics. So for sure we will talk about that. So for now, that's it. I'll see you next time.
Bye.